Great turnout. I think we just had a really good discussion on the table, talking about the stuff that Ben was looking at before. So what does the job market look like in 2017? We sort of have a little crystal ball that we sort of look forward in Adzuna. And so, I think what we're going to concentrate on at the minute is the data that we have at Adzuna at our disposal, essentially, in order to sort of frame what the job market looks like. So, a little bit about us first of all. So, we like to think of ourselves as the fastest growing job search engine in the UK. We have 10 million visits coming to what now is 16 different countries. We organise our ads in a sort of powerful search, really, putting the candidate at heart. So everything we do really revolves around the candidate, making sure that they get back exactly what they're looking for. And having what is 95% of the UK online content sort of on our site, what it gives us is the opportunity to really have that data and hopefully use it in a way that gives you guys back something in terms of insight that you can look at, essentially. We look to make our technology, to make it easy for candidates to find jobs, all the jobs in one place. Hopefully gives them an opportunity to really come into our site and make sure that they're finding exactly what they want. A little bit pertinent given what's going on at the moment, but we have a feed of our data that goes into the Prime Minister's office. A little bit of PR really for us, but that's stitched in with the ONS data, giving the number 10 office sort of an overview of what the recruitment market looks like. And we're independent, right? We're a London-based startup, team of 45 people, and I think that what that gives us is an opportunity to really partner with individual companies to really look at what their needs are in order to make sure that what we're doing really revolves back into giving you guys the best possible candidates coming through. So I promised Mark and Tash that would be it in terms of the Adzuna piece. So really now it's about the data, right? Really looking at the topic, what does the job market look like in 2017? And we're actually going to take a further view. What does it look like beyond that? So, as I've mentioned, we have, 95% of online content in terms of job ad, right? Look at regional variances, national, right the way across the UK, both in terms of salary, job numbers, migration in terms of individuals coming from north, south, and wherever it may be, right? So we're going to take a bit of a dive into that now and really look at national variances followed by a little bit of the Midlands, so given where we are. So as you can see, from here, vacancies starting to rise again. Significant dip in January. We always generally see that just on the back of Christmas, people starting to get things going as they go through into January, vacancies coming back out, people starting to list them as we head through that month. But what we're seeing now is it's recovering again to levels back in 2016. So this time round in 2016, we saw a bit of a dip as we went through the post-June time, but again, we're starting to see it flatten out. What we see here is the number of vacancies, the number of listed vacancies that we have, alongside that of the ONS data that we receive of the number of people claiming job seekers allowance. So as you can see, starting to flatten out again. We sort of saw that rise as we headed through the 2015, but what we're now seeing is that's starting to level out now. We're starting to see the number of vacancies really stabilise. What we've done here is we're highlighting some regional differences in terms of the overall vacancies posted, and this takes it from June of last year, right? So 23rd of June, in terms of where we see now the number of advertised vacancies running through each of these different regions. And I think if we go back here, what we can actually see is Wales leading the charge. If you read on various newswires, what we've got is various people, various companies, Aston Martin being one of them, really looking to push their factories into Wales. So again, the number of vacancies we're seeing overall increase. As we look in the southeast, a bit more of a challenging market than necessarily London, but again, finance, as we've seen, the number of vacancies dropping as we've gone through 2016 into 17. I think what we've got here is East Midlands, followed by West Midlands, right? So again, if we take the East Midlands, so again, bucking the trend as we've seen from London, but the West Midlands sort of picking it up slightly less as we've gone through the last quarter, but it's lagging behind the overall average of the East Midlands. So the biggest losers in terms of jobs that we've seen, the number of vacancies posted by some sectors here. What we've got is travel jobs really taking a bit of a hit. And we think that down to the things like travel e-commerce, things like Booking.com coming out, technology really overtaking the number of people that are necessarily in the sort of retail element of travel. Engineering jobs, consultancy, creative design, again, all dipping down over the last 12 months. On the upside, the biggest winners, as you might want to call it, retail, teaching, social work, logistics, and hospitality and catering. Again, looking to really pick up the number of vacancies advertised over the last 12 months on the big increase. All that coupled with salary. So we mentioned salary on our table in terms of the discussion, in terms of hiring managers and the data that we might want to share with them in order to show them why candidates aren't necessarily applying for their job. But salaries are fairly stagnant. You may all nod your heads, you may all think, well, actually, that's about right, but we certainly see it in terms of the advertised salaries that we see on Adzuna. And they're slowly rising. You can see there, there is a rise, but if we take the overall picture over the last sort of 4 years or so, we've got a long way to go in terms of advertised salaries back on looking at the sort of the latter part of 2014. At its real peak 3 years ago, we're seeing overall advertised salaries knocking on the door of 35k. Again, there's about a £3,000 drop in that advertised salary. So salaries is a long way to catch up from what we're seeing now from the high peaks back in 2014. We take that in terms of regional discrepancy, overall in terms of number of vacancies that we see. And as you can see here, what we see here is Sunderland. There's 2.78 candidates per job. If you want to come in, look at Sunderland. If we want to take Cambridge, that means there's 16 vacancies per candidate. So huge discrepancies that we see overall in terms of different cities and different regions from what we see on Adzuna. So, looking at this, if you're going to be a candidate looking for a job, clearly the northeast is the place to go. Cambridge, on the other hand, we're certainly seeing, the number of jobs out there per candidate is staggering. Given that we're in the Midlands, we thought we'd take a Midlands snapshot. So what we're seeing here, average salaries, looking at East and West, slightly below that of the UK average, but certainly, if you're looking for a job and you want a slightly bigger salary, the West Midlands is the place to look at. However, the number of vacancies that we're actually seeing, far greater in the West Midlands than we're seeing in the overall in the East. But again, the number of vacancies that we're seeing per job seeker, again, certainly the East Midlands is looking like 2 jobs per candidate. So again, that's certainly the place in which we believe, if we want to look at the East Midlands, to be the place to look for that vacancy. On a city level, Northampton seems to be the place in which you necessarily want to start looking for a job. Wolverhampton, on the other hand, you might want to stand out, pay a little bit more in order to stand out to those candidates. And if we look at the Midland cities comparing on salaries, Birmingham certainly easily above the Stoke-on-Trent, but again, as a regional variance, is quite wild in terms of the salary range that we're seeing between the cities there. I think that Northampton nearly £2,000 more than Wolverhampton. So if we look to the future, I think that's a bit of a look of where we have now, right? I think the data that we have really shows a snapshot of where we are in this current month. And I think the jobs report that we publish, which is free on Adzuna, you should sign up to the Adzuna blog. You can get all of this data on there. It really gives, hopefully, you guys an opportunity to take some of that data back to the hiring managers that you deal with, to show the different variances, the salaries, the number of even job seekers that are likely to be going for the roles that you might be posting. And what that might open up is some debate around the salaries that you might pay, the benefits that you might necessarily offer. But again, all of that data is freely open. You can come onto Adzuna and certainly take that. What we look at here is the future, right? And I think what we've been doing, and certainly in Adzuna, we're looking at automation, AI, what that might mean to the overall job market. So, are the robots taking over? Our founder, Doug, did a really cool LinkedIn blog post around robots, what it actually means to the recruitment market, and in overall number of vacancies. So here's some pickups of the stuff that we had out there. Are robots taking over, right? We had a nice interview on the BBC about artificial intelligence and what it means to the recruitment market. And I think that this is a real pertinent topic at the moment. What we're looking at in terms of what automation is looking like in terms of the vacancies that it might affect. Because, you know, it's not a future trend, right? I mean, it's not something that necessarily we look at in the future. This is happening now. We certainly see it. Some of the data that we have, you can look at automation being one of the reasons for the decline in the overall number of vacancies. Because, you know, it isn't just the future. You know, we are, as I say, we're seeing it right now, right? I think occupations that fall, you know, where we're seeing the number of vacancies dropping, you know, what we're seeing is that 2/3 of them, or the reason for that, is general automation and AI automation. Right? And it mentions here in the top 20 fastest declining occupations, you know, translation is one of those. You know, Google Translate is necessarily taking over what a translator would have done in the past. So automation coming through, we see it, we use it, you know, it's just a button on Google now. You don't necessarily think of it as being automation, but it's certainly causing the number of vacancies in that particular market to drop. So if we look at the future of automation for recruiters, you know, what does that mean? So you'll be pleased to know it's likely to be safe. What we see is there are more jobs actually being created through automation. So whereas you look at translation on Google, you know, it might affect the number of people or the number of translators. However, with Google, what it does is it actually increases the number of developers they want. So whereas it reduces one side, it then increases on another. And so, you know, new jobs require just new expertise. So as we come out, you know, the more people in IT, the more jobs that it necessarily creates. So the good news is, from what we see on there though, you know, in terms of the chance of automation for HR, it's less than 1%, 0.55% chance of automation. So again, incredibly safe for everyone around the room here. The good news, if we look at salaries, in the way in which salaries are increasing, HR recruitment salaries, they're growing faster than any other sector. Hopefully there's a few nods, maybe not, maybe a few shakes of the head. But what we're seeing is there's a 4.6% increase in salary in the HR sector as over the last 12 months. So what does all this sort of come out to? You know, how can we use the data? What can we try and achieve? What can you guys do in order to try and make sure that you can take advantage of the rich data that you have at your disposal in order to show salaries, hiring managers, you know, again, might have to pay more, might have to look different ways, might have to invest harder in terms of attracting the right talent. So, you know, it's taking advantage really. It's making sure that you're using the right channels in order to get the right candidates. Making sure that you're using the data at your disposal in order to make sure that you're reaching the right types of people that hiring manager is going to want. It's writing, you know, the best job descriptions. You know, gone are the days of 100-page job applications. Candidates now want, you know, very simple, easy ways to apply. It's engaging with them, right? I think that hiring managers, internal recruiters, you should be thinking yourselves as marketeers. You should be thinking of the ways in which you can actually generate and go in front of those candidates in order to make sure that they want to apply for your job and not the next one. And that all comes down, to, again, to content, marketing content in a way. I think it's about investing, right? The labour market is squeezed. As we've seen, there are the candidates are necessarily declining. The number of people looking for jobs is going down. However, the number of vacancies is going up, right? So we're getting a really tight labour market, a really shortage of talent, if you want to call it that. And now it's about trying to invest in the right ways to attract those candidates. And investment doesn't necessarily come from placing it on the right job board or using a certain agency. It comes from investing in salary, making sure that you're attracting the people with the right benefits. And so it's about engaging with hiring managers and the teams that you all work within in order to try and show that in order to get that best talent, you know, investment is going to have to happen. And it's about accelerating. What we see, you know, it's not about slowing down, but actually making sure that you're accelerating your approach to get the right candidates coming through. You know, in a market whereby there are less candidates out there, standing still and hoping they'll come is likely to have an impact on the quality of candidates you have coming through. You know, for us, it's about trying to help you guys promote yourselves in the right way. You know, people around the room at the moment, the sponsors that we have here today are all there to try and help, to try and get in front of the best candidates. And certainly that's something that, you know, if you are thinking of reducing that investment, reducing the opportunity that you have to get out to the right candidates, you're only going to then lag behind. So just quickly to sum up, you know, I think salaries increasing slowly. I think what we've seen is a long way to go to get to the heights of 2014 in terms of advertised salaries, averages, but certainly increasing. People are showing investment in trying to attract the right people. We've seen vacancies on the up, stabling out somewhat, but certainly a far increase from what we had before 3 years ago. And again, as we've gone through what might have been deemed a turbulent time since June of last year, people are still recruiting. There are still lots of jobs out there. Midlands is performing well. I think in terms of a national average, it's not too far behind. So I think there's lots of opportunity, again, to take this data and use it to your advantage. Automation, I think we can't move away from it. I think try and read more about it, understand how it might affect roles that you might be looking at, but it's here already, right? It's not something that we necessarily look to the future to see. We're already seeing decline in certain vacancy areas because of automation and AI. And about getting the right marketing mix. Trying to reach candidates, trying to make sure that the way in which you approach them, the way in which you can actually engage with candidates is right. And I think that will then put you head and shoulders necessarily above the people looking for the same role in a similar sector. There's a few of us here from Adzuna today. Speak to us, ask us how we may be able to help, how we can share this data with you, right? I think that, as Tash has already said, the slides are available at the end of the day. However, the data that we can actually offer that builds these slides is, it's a huge piece of work that the data scientists at Adzuna actually pull together. We offer it out free on a monthly basis, so try and use it to your advantage to understand regional variances, salaries, trends, in order to make sure that you're going in front of the right candidates. Hope you found that insightful. Hope you saw some data in there that might have opened your eyes to necessarily what is out there, what we may be able to help provide. But overall, thanks very much for your time.